In the thin mist of early morning, the vast industrial complex appears like a steel city separated from the rest of the world. From the outside, the place is almost silent. Only cold, white, light strips run along the concrete walls. Thin columns of vapor rise from cooling systems. Somewhere deep inside, distant engines begin to wake. There is none of the chaos usually associated with an ordinary factory. No wasted motion, no disorder. Everything here suggests something very different. Precision, secrecy, and control pushed to the highest possible level. This is not simply a factory. It is a place where aerospace structures are brought into existence through a fully controlled chain of processes, where machines, light, data, and human judgment function together like parts of a single living body. From the very first moment, it becomes clear that every square meter of this complex was built for a purpose. Every corridor, every overhead crane, every support cradle, every inspection frame, every sealed chamber exists to serve a manufacturing flow that moves across multiple sectors without ever truly breaking. As the systems come alive, the real rhythm of the facility begins to reveal itself. Lights activate row by row. Layers of information appear on control panels. Robotic arms that stood motionless through the night begin checking their own range of motion. Guided floor rails illuminate across the surface below. Air circulation units, pressure lines, environmental stabilizers, and extraction systems begin operating in an order so exact that the entire complex seems to draw a single deep breath before beginning the day. At the front end of the line, control material handling begins. Components emerge from temperature-regulated storage through precision lifting systems. Under the white overhead light, metallic surfaces appear cold, clean, and perfectly uniform. Each piece is placed onto guided transfer rails with no hesitation and no excess motion, as if the entire facility already knows where it must go and exactly when it must arrive. There are no wasted gestures here, only motion that has been planned, repeated, and refined. From this point on, each structural element begins its journey. It moves through enclosed machining cells, where cutting, shaping, surface finishing, and geometric refinement take place. Behind transparent barriers, the viewer does not need to see every hidden action in detail to understand the intensity of what is happening. The steady tone of rotating tools, the circulation of cooling systems, the locking of clamps around raw material, these sounds alone are enough to communicate the force of advanced industrial work inside. This is a different kind of power. It does not announce itself through noise and spectacle. It creates the feeling of restrained capability, compressed inside a disciplined environment. Beyond the first machining zone, components continue towards scanning and verification stations. Here, light is no longer just illumination. It becomes an instrument of judgment. White and blue scanning bands move across curved surfaces as though reading every contour. Optical systems, thermal sensors, measurement heads, and articulated probes travel along program paths with extraordinary precision. In this world, a surface is never just a surface. Every exterior line, every edge, every transition contains information, and the system exists to make that information visible. The deeper the process moves into the heart of the complex, the more overwhelming the scale becomes. Enormous cylindrical structures rest on specialized cradles beneath long rows of lighting and crane systems high above. Rotating industrial platforms hold major structures steady while allowing them to be moved, tilted, aligned, and locked into position. From the catwalks overhead, everything below resembles a vast mechanical choreography, one that has been designed long before the first movement begins. Nothing appears chaotic. Every machine knows its limit. Every pause has meaning. One of the most striking features of the facility is how rarely people dominate the frame. That is not because they lack importance. It is because a truly advanced factory does not rely on dense human presence inside the line itself. Machines perform most of the physical movement. Human beings appear at the moments where data must be interpreted, where systems must be confirmed, where final decisions must be made. When an engineer stands beside an enormous structure, That figure is not there to become the center of attention. That figure is there to remind us how large the machine has become and how far precision has advanced beyond what the naked eye can judge alone. Sometimes all it takes is a single gloved hand touching a transparent interface, a brief glance toward a stream of telemetry, or a measured walk through a glass observation corridor to make the authority of the entire facility feel even stronger. Here, people do not compete with the machines for presence. They read the language the machines are speaking. Once the structural sections have passed through multiple layers of shaping, finishing, and verification, the manufacturing line enters its integration phase. The rhythm changes. Everything becomes slower, heavier, more deliberate. This is no longer the feeling of rapid production. It is the feeling of bringing major structures into their final relationship with one another. Large cylindrical bodies are lowered into alignment cradles. Secondary assemblies move in from adjacent lanes through mist and cold light. Overhead gantries carry heavy shapes into position with a calm that feels almost ceremonial. Inside the integration halls, lasers no longer scan only to measure. They scan to confirm that the final external form is emerging exactly as intended. Multi-point locking frames tighten around major structures in measured sequence. Status lights shift across the room. Graphs and telemetry streams move over curved displays in distant control rooms. On the floor of the hall itself, almost no one speaks. If there is tension, it lives in the sound of air systems, in the locking of steel, in the movement of weight across rails beneath the floor. Watch long enough, and the entire complex begins to feel like a living organism. The fabrication halls are its hands, the scanning stations are its eyes, the control center is its mind. The pressure systems, ventilation networks, environmental chambers, and circulation lines are its lungs. Every part of the complex has its own function, but none of them operate in isolation. If the rhythm shifts in one place, the entire facility responds in order to maintain balance. And perhaps that is what makes this kind of environment so compelling. Its power is not simply in how many machines it contains. Its power lies in the fact that every one of those machines seems to be serving a final form that has not yet fully appeared. Each structural element moves through its stage like a sentence being prepared for a much larger story. And once the viewer senses that, every motion within the line takes on a deeper meaning. After integration comes the final sequence of evaluation. The spaces become colder, brighter, and quieter. Sealed corridor, assessment hall, and long transfer tracks open behind massive doors that separate one chamber from the next. When a long, unified, clearly recognizable launch vehicle form enters this part of the complex, the emotional atmosphere shifts. The line is no longer producing separate structures. It is confronting the result of its own discipline. Final scanning systems travel along the full length of the completed body. Light moves from the conical nose profile down across the cylindrical surface and further along the structural exterior. Every band, every transition, every panel line, every visible section of the outer form is read again. Under cold white light, the structure is no longer merely an industrial product. It is the outcome of thousands of alignments, thousands of confirmations, and thousands of data points gathered, compared, and locked across the full journey through the plant. Inside the glass rooms surrounding the evaluation halls, engineers stand at a distance. That distance matters. It signals the maturity of the line itself. Human beings do not need to stand inside the machinery to prove that they are in control. Control here is expressed through the ability to stand behind glass, in silence, and still understand exactly what is happening inside every scan, every light band, every chamber beyond. A truly advanced factory does not speak about power through explosions, speed for its own sake, or visible chaos. It speaks about power through order, through the ability to move structures of enormous scale with the calm of a measured breath, through the ability to let long metallic surfaces reflect light as if they were formed from a single uninterrupted shape, through the ability to turn countless complex operations into one uninterrupted visual flow without exposing the disorder that had to be defeated along the way. When the final great doors begin to open and the transfer corridor appears in a field of white vapor, The emotional peak of the film arrives in an unusual way. There is no cheering, no burst of noise, only the sound of the cradle unlocking, the low movement of the heavy rail beneath the floor. The rising tone of machinery as a large completed structure begins to move slowly forward. In that moment, the most impressive thing is not only the appearance of the machine itself, it is the way the entire factory seems to step aside and make room for it. Light is no longer just revealing the object, it is guiding it. Long bands of illumination activate through the corridor ahead. Rails seem to run endlessly into deeper sectors of the complex. Behind it, observation windows grow smaller. The people who were monitoring its progress become only distant silhouettes, framed in cold light. The center of the entire world has shifted. Everything now points toward the structure moving forward. That is the moment the film has been building toward from the beginning. Because only then does the viewer fully understand that the factory was never just a backdrop. The factory was the main character. And the long machine moving through the mist is the final language that character uses to reveal what it truly is. In an age when technology is often presented through sleek interfaces and invisible promises on screens, places like this offer a different kind of truth. Here, technology has weight. It has length, surface, sound, vibration, and inertia. It exists physically in space, undeniable. And that is why the image of a modern aerospace factory feels so powerful. It shows us that human intelligence does not live only in ideas. It can be refined into steel, aligned through light, tested through data, and finally brought into being as an object that feels almost close to the future itself. If we look back across the full journey, what remains is not just the memory of robotic arms, sealed chambers, control displays, or massive doors. What remains is the feeling of a system capable of operating with near total precision across a long and demanding chain of work. A system where error is hunted at every stage. A place where light, movement, and material are placed into a single order. A place where every structural element, large or small, must prove that it deserves to continue. And in that deep, cold, white, industrial world, filled with distant engines and controlled motion, what humanity creates is more than an aerospace structure. It creates proof that discipline, intelligence, and organized effort can still build things that rise far beyond the scale of the people who imagined them. That is why a place like this is more than a factory. It is a measure of how far a technological civilization has come